Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Today we are doing a napkin journal, but we're going to create the background using our brayer. Here's a sneak peek of the finished project. I am working in my 9x12 Canson Mixed Media Art Journal. I've taken the pages out and I am going to be using this beautiful napkin from Ninny's Napkins called Tulip Bouquet. So let's get to the brayered background. This is a quick, easy way to get a textured, layered background that's really soft. So you take several colors of paint and you apply them with a brayer across the page. I like to go straight up and down or straight side to side or both. I try not to go diagonally. I'm using three colors: Naples yellow, white gesso, and magenta. The magenta and the yellow I know aren't going to make mud, so I don't have to stop in between to dry the layers. FYI, they dry really quick because you're just putting on a very thin layer. So I put on the Naples yellow and now I'm putting on some white gesso and I'm knocking back some of those areas that might have gotten a little bit dark. This provides, when you brayer it on, it gives a great texture and feel. You get some white space coming out, so it's a very soft effect. So here I'm going to put the magenta and I'm going the opposite direction. Here I'm turning the page and you're just going to continue layering the colors as you go until you get the background to where you like it. As I said, my Naples yellow and the magenta I know aren't going to make mud, so I don't have to worry. But if I was using red and green, I might make sure that it was dried in between. Taking the white, knocking back areas that maybe you don't like as much. And I'm keeping in mind, I know where my focal image is going and I want that to be lighter. I'm also choosing to do a brayered background because it's going to give me that texture, it's going to give me color, but it's not going to overly compete with my focal image. So here's the plan. I'm going to use the napkin and I'm going to use two parts of this Tulip Bouquet napkin. And I've rough cut it and I'm taking off the two excess plies. Now one of these sections of the napkin doesn't quite give me the full bouquet that I want coming out of these rubber boots. So I am going to use two and build my bouquet. And in order to do that, first I'm going to water cut parts of the section that I don't want. Then I'm going to harvest from the other section more tulips and I'm going to decoupage them together to create the bouquet, the fullness of the bouquet that I want. Now I'm using the same napkin here, but you can use elements from different napkins and come up with something completely original. I'm putting water on a liner brush and lightly putting that on the napkin and ripping it. This gives a deckled edge, which then disappears more easily when I decoupage it done. Here I'm just getting rid of some other areas or excess napkin. I like to clean it up as much as possible. The napkin, the background of this napkin is white, so it has the best chance of disappearing, especially when you have a light background like we have, which is one of the reasons I chose to do a brayered background. And as you can see, I chose colors that were in my focal image. So there's my basic setup. So now I want to paint these boots. This is a printable that I got. I'm not even sure where I got it from. And I'm going to apply this Amsterdam acrylic paint. I think it's green blue or blue green with a little bit of gesso. I'm just using a makeup sponge. Now I'm not worried about it being kind of modeled looking right now because I am going to stencil on And I prefer to have it some lighter, some darker, different tones. I just think that always adds interest to your final piece. And what a pop of color. That looks so good with the soft pastel colors of this. So I grabbed this stencil from the Crafter's Workshop. It's called Swiss Dot, and as you can see, it gets lots of love. And I'm putting the straight up blue-green through the stencil, just to add a pattern, a very subtle pattern to the boots. Any small scale pattern would work here. And then I'm putting white. So I've got white dots and I've got some of the bluer dots. And I'm just moving the stencil around to make sure I get all the areas. And once that is completely dry, I'm going to come in and I'm going to shade with my angle brush. Now I start here with the blue-green and then I decide I want to go darker, so I'm using Prussian blue to shade because I want to bring out the lines. I do add a little bit of black. I go here with the Prussian blue and then I go over it again and shade with black. That kind of gives a two-tiered shade effect that I've quite grown to love. Now this printable, I just printed it on copy paper. There was nothing fancy here, not mixed media paper. I don't need the extra bulk in my art journal. If I was doing this on a canvas, I might want to put it on mixed media paper or some thicker paper. And here I'm coming in with the black for the bottoms of the boots, and then I shade with the black as well. This entire project was about 40 minutes from beginning to end. It was very quick and easy. And part of that reason was the Brayered background. So there are my tulip, the bouquet, and the boots. I just love how that all works together. Waste not, want not, so I'm using up the rest of that paint and grabbing that same stencil and adding it to my accidental art journal. Adding one more element to this page. Back to the project at hand. So I have the composition all set, and I know where the tulips are going to go, so I am simply going to glue it down with my fluid matte medium. Putting a coat underneath and then on top. When I use napkin or tissue paper, I prefer using the fluid matte medium to the gel. I just find I get better results. It's smoother, it doesn't rip as much when I use the fluid. And you're using a very soft touch because, of course, the napkin gets very fragile once it's wet. So I put the main part of the tulips down, and once I dry that completely, I'm going to come back and layer on those extra tulips that I used, that I cut from the second panel. Because the background is so light and it's the same color as the tulips, this really didn't dull the colors of the napkin. If I had put a blue background behind there, it might have altered the colors of the napkin. Now I'm going to add a little bit more interest to my background. This stencil is called Dotted Rings, and I'm using quinacridone magenta, slightly darker shade of the magenta that's in there, but it matches the darker shade of magenta on the tulips. and I'm just getting this all over. I'm not looking for a perfect stenciling, but I do want it all over. There's the circle on this stencil that goes with the dots that I used on the boots, and the color matches. This is again one of those stencils that I have used and makes a good basic that you can use on a lot of things. I thought about using the blue in the background through this stencil. Would you have done blue? Or left it pink like I did? This use of that stencil kind of mimics the shape of the petals on the tulip. So here, since the copy paper with the paint is a little thicker, I'm using gel medium, but I could have used fluid medium. Lining that up and gluing it down when putting a coat on top as well. If you're already a subscriber to my channel, thank you so much. If you're not a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button and select the option, click the bell, select the option to be notified of upcoming videos. I grabbed my Inktense blocks and I'm using my swatches to match the colors of the tulips. And then I'm just giving them a light wash of color just to deepen that color a tad. I want the focal image to be the brightest thing, so I'm picking a magenta color or colors, a couple tones of yellow, the green as well. When I get to the green, I'm adding maybe some leaves, filling in the stems to the tulips that I've added to the bouquet. And I find using multiple shades of a similar color always adds more interest. I'm going to edge the page with black acrylic paint just to frame it. As I said earlier, this napkin came from Ninny's Napkins. She also sells a lot of stencils and other mixed media and art journal supplies, so check it out. There is a link in the description box below along with a coupon code. The composition of this, the idea for this, is not an original idea. I saw a sign at Michael's that was very similar, and that's where I got my inspiration from. I said, I can recreate that using my mixed media supplies. Just adding some white highlights to my bouquet. I just find the addition of color and the highlights make it look less like a napkin glued down and more like something you've painted. I printed off a spring quote. It says, "Spring, nature's way of saying let's party." Gluing that down with my fluid matte medium. Now, the tulip napkin had these blue flowers, but they were more baby blue, not the teal turquoisey blue that I had in the boots. So I'm taking that same paint that I painted the boots and just going over the blue flowers just to make it match. I always want to have one color, if I have it in one place, have it in some other place, so it all works together. So if it's not quite the right shade, you can absolutely alter it. Make it your own. I'm just mixing it with a little bit of gesso to make it opaque so I've got coverage. If I use my Inktense blocks, that's more translucent or transparent, and it doesn't work as well. Dotting the middle of the blue flowers with yellow. Then to finish off, I'm just grabbing my black Posca pen, adding a bit of line work, outlining. I'll outline the sentiment and the page. I love how this turned out. In fact, I think I would like to make it a canvas. I might do it on an 11 by 14 canvas board that I can display during the season and swap out for other seasons. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment. Until next time, go get creative.